One life is not enough. Part 39. P.V. Narasimha Rao came from a humble home. His intellectual center was India. His roots were deep in its spiritual and religious soil. His knowledge of Sanskrit was profound. He was a man of learning, a scholar, a linguist, and a thinker of the first order. Although a picture of serene calmness, he was no saint. He was astute, crafty, and patient, but also capable of radioactive sarcasm. He smiled without a smile. In early 1990, he had decided to retire from politics when Rajiv Gandhi denied him a Rajya Sabha seat. This saddened him as he was a very senior Congress leader. Being a reticent person, he did not create a ruckus but made arrangements to go back to Hyderabad when Rajiv was tragically assassinated. I had first met PV in 1976 at a Havan organized by the Guru Chandraswami in a house in Panchsheel Park. In the middle of May 1980, PV became the External Affairs Minister. Indira Gandhi's choice took everyone by surprise as PV then had no experience whatsoever of diplomacy and foreign policy. He began by keeping a very low profile and was for a long time unable to take any kind of initiative. He was very slow at taking decisions and would often change his mind. He was a loner and avoided familiarity. He was a man transformed after becoming Prime Minister. When PV became Prime Minister, the country faced a very serious balance of payments crisis. For the first time, India had to deposit 47 tons of gold with the Bank of England to tide over the immediate crisis. The most important issue at the time was the selection of the finance minister. The first choice was I.G. Patel, who had had a very distinguished career and was one of the eminent economists of the country. IG was unable to accept on account of his health and also because he lived in Baroda and did not wish to shift to Delhi. Manmohan Singh was then invited. He had for the past 3 years been heading the South South Commission and had functioned from Geneva. After his tenure as Secretary General of the South South Commission ended, Manmohan Singh was without a job and was for a short time economic advisor to Prime Minister Chandrasekhar. He had also been selected to head the Union Public Service Commission. To begin with, Manmohan Singh was not keen to become finance minister but was persuaded to do so and proved to be an outstanding one. India sought relief for its financial crisis from the IMF, which insisted that economic reforms be introduced before a loan of $1.4 billion was approved. Thus, economic reforms were launched to open up the economy to foreign investment and business competition. Senior Congress party members were unhappy at PV abandoning Nehru's socialist economic policies and ending the state controlled mode of functioning. They favored a mixed economy. They had earned vast amounts during the license Raj and wished it to continue. However, they embraced Manmohan Singh and his policies within 6 months. PV Narasimha Rao faced the most serious crisis of his tenure on 6th December 1992. The Babri Masjid in Ayodhya was demolished. After the demolition, riots broke out in Aligarh, Agra, Varanasi, and many other cities. Bombay saw the worst rioting. When I met the Prime Minister in the Parliament after the demolition, he was in a daze. I asked if the Ministry of External Affairs had been instructed to send telegrams to all Indian missions to explain the reasons for bringing down the mosque, as they would be inundated with queries by the respective governments and the international media. This was finally done. I had many differences with PV's style of functioning and openly spoke against him along with a group of Congress leaders. This crusade was masterminded by Arjun Singh. The attack on Narasimha Rao was two-pronged. First, he had gone back on the assurance given that after becoming Prime Minister, he would give up the post of Congress President. And second, the economic reforms introduced by him were contrary to the policies of the Congress Party. We broke away from the main Congress and formed a new party, the Tiwari Congress. For almost 2 years, PV did not appoint an external affairs minister. In early 1993, he appointed the highly respected Pranab Mukherjee, the senior-most congressman. PV backed out from conducting nuclear tests on 1995. His advisors and experts had convinced him that India was in a position to do so and he had agreed. But the American satellites picked up the activities around Pokhran. The satellite photographs were brought to India by the American ambassador who showed them to the Prime Minister. President Bill Clinton also spoke to him in strong terms and PV changed his mind. Our concreted efforts to remove PV did not succeed because he was far cleverer than all of us. But he did not have the support of Sonia. An impression was created by one or two senior members of the CWC that Sonia Gandhi was not happy with the reform process and that Narasimha Rao was ignoring her. The attempt was to weaken the hands of Narasimha Rao. Almost all the senior members of the Congress party were aware of Sonia, giving him the cold shoulder. In the 1996 Lok Sabha elections, every candidate of the Tiwari Congress other than Sisram Ola lost the elections. Some senior members had hoped that the party had or would have the support of Sonia Gandhi. But Mrs. Gandhi did not oblige and remained aloof from all political activities. I remember Arjun Singh telling me, "This is the reward for loyalty." The Congress also lost the 1996 Lok Sabha elections and PV sat on the opposition benches. He made one or two brilliantly argued interventions in Parliament, but the loss of power also meant loss of influence and patronage. Soon, a concentrated attack was mounted against him and he ceased being president of the party. Thereafter, he disappeared into oblivion. The well heeled treasurer of the Congress party, Sitaram Kesari, succeeded him. As a Prime Minister, PV had shown uncommon political skill. Heading a minority government, he was able to complete 5 years by keeping his allies with him throughout. Between 1996 and 1998, India was in deep political crisis. To everyone's surprise, the non Congress parties selected H.D. Devegowda as Prime Minister in 1996. He was a major political figure in Karnataka but was hardly known in North India. He spoke no Hindi, lacked charisma, and was not a leader who inspired confidence. As an individual, Devegowda is likable if not lovable. A fine and charming man, even his idiosyncrasies are endearing. He always addressed me as senior leader and refers to him as a poor farmer. In his short tenure, his only remarkable act was to speak of maximum autonomy for Kashmir. His government fell in April 1997 and he was replaced by Inder Kumar Gujral. Like Devegowda, Gujral belonged to the United Front and became Prime Minister with the Congress support. I had known him when he was Minister of State in Indira Gandhi's government and he was among the very few ministers who stood up to Sanjay Gandhi. He had vision and his sophistication was not elitist. He had been a card carrying member of the Communist Party before the partition. His tenure, like that of Gowda, was short lived. The Congress Party with Sitaram Kesari as president was not an effective or assertive outfit. It had lost its bearings. After the 1996 elections, it was reduced to 112 members. Sonia asked me how she should proceed. Reinvent the party, I advised. A council that was easier offered than implemented. Would she be up to the job? What would her priorities be? These questions were being asked in clandestine, disgruntled group meetings. It was abundantly clear that without Sonia at the helm, the future of the Congress looked bleak. Kesari did not last long. A coup did him in, even though he had the support of several senior members of the CWC. Sonia was unanimously elected to succeed him. Immediately after Sonia's election as Congress President, the Tiwari Congress dissolved itself and returned to the parent party. But it was not all smooth going. The well entrenched old turkeys worked behind the scenes to block the Tiwari Congress return. Sonia saw through their unseemly designs, though, and overruled them. In 1998, Sonia's most challenging task was to ensure that the Congress did well in the Lok Sabha elections to be held in early May. She came to my constituency where had ensured a large audience. I won comfortably even though the Congress fared very badly overall. The National Democratic Alliance, led by Atal Bihari Vajpayee, formed the government at the center. On 11 and 30th May, the NDA government tested 5 nuclear devices at Pokhran, Rajasthan. The worldwide reaction was without exception hostile and sanctions were placed against India. Within the country too, there were sharp divisions. The Congress party faced a dilemma. Should it welcome the tests or not? Hair splitting was resorted to. The party congratulated the scientists for the achievement but not the government. I met P.N. Huskar for advice and he was categorical that the Congress must welcome the five tests. It would damage the party if it condemned them. Under normal circumstances, the Prime Minister should have taken into confidence the leader of opposition before going ahead with the tests. But this Vajpayee did not do because he feared that somebody would leak the news. In the debate in the Lok Sabha on the nuclear issue on the 28th, I was the first speaker from the Congress party. I spoke at length and as I continued, I sensed the mood in the House changing and gradually the government was put on the spot. The Prime Minister, instead of writing to the heads of state of permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, should have immediately called a special session of the Lok Sabha. This too he did not do. I was in the lobby of the Lok Sabha when L.K. Advani told me that Pakistan had also conducted 5 nuclear tests in response to ours on 28 May. The security situation in the Indian subcontinent changed dramatically. For all the past decades, India had military superiority over Pakistan in conventional weapons. This advantage disappeared when both countries became nuclear powers. The Americans had tried very hard to persuade Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif not to respond to India's tests. The Pakistani Prime Minister was called to Washington and spoken to sternly by President Bill Clinton. Nawaz, who was in a panic, responded that if Pakistan did not respond to India's tests, not only would his government fall, there would be widespread disturbances throughout the country. The ramifications of the nuclear tests were worldwide. While there was tremendous excitement and approval in the Muslim community about what foolishly hailed as the Islamic bomb, the US and the Western countries, as well as countries like China, Japan, and Australia, condemned the tests and imposed stern sanctions on both countries, which predictably did not last long. After the tests, the Non Proliferation and Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban treaties once again surfaced. We refused to sign these treaties because they had one standard for the permanent members of the Security Council and another for the rest of the UN member countries. However, in order to mend the strained relations between India and Pakistan following the nuclear tests, both countries signed the Lahore Declaration on 21st February 1999. The agreement contained several measures to prevent the outbreak of a nuclear conflict between the two countries and emphasized a joint commitment to resolve the Kashmir situation. The Prime Minister Vajpayee put in place several measures towards peace at the time, including the inauguration of a Delhi Lahore bus service. It was later discovered that around the same time, Pakistan was covertly sending some of its troops to cross the line of control and infiltrate parts of Kashmir around a town called Kargil. By May 1999, the conflict had intensified as certain sectors, including the Patalik and Akhnur sectors and parts of the Siachen Glacier, were occupied by Pakistani forces. Indian forces launched an offensive Operation Vijay to recapture these points. After international pressure, which included a phone call from the US President to Pakistan Prime Minister and post India's recapturing of key peaks, Pakistan withdrew its troops from the area. On 26 July 1999, the Kargil war came to an end with the removal of all Pakistani intruders. In the aftermath of the war, elections were held in 1999 after the AIADMK withdrew its support to the government. The NDA won by a huge margin, securing a majority. Vajpayee was once again sworn in as Prime Minister. In December 1999, another cross border crisis occurred as an Indian Airlines plane IC 814 from Kathmandu to New Delhi was hijacked by terrorists en route and flown to Kandahar in Afghanistan. Under extreme pressure, the NDA government had to succumb to the demands of the terrorists, which included the release of three hardcore terrorists. External Affairs Minister Jashwant Singh personally flew to Kandahar to exchange the terrorists with the passengers. The Kandahar visit of Jashwant Singh was widely deplored. Thank you for listening.